Hey, everybody, SIG architecture meeting for July 13th. Sorry we started the recording late, but most of you just been chit-chatting, and Ben's been telling me we need to do our annual report. So beyond that, Sergey has the first agenda item here.
Yeah, so what is happening right now is we have this two ways to collect metrics. First, we collect metrics through CAdvisor, and second, we switch into the new way to collect them through CRI API. And as a part of beta graduation of CRI API metrics, the suggestion was to mark CAdvisor way as deprecated. And it caused me to pause a little bit. So because deprecation typically means that something will be gone soon. And once we mark something as deprecated, it's clearly gives message to people to start migrating to some other way. So let's say we mark something as deprecated, a customer receives this message, they see it in the release note, they would want to migrate to something, but the only option we give them is a beta feature. Something that is maybe is like enabled by default, maybe not enabled by default, but like it doesn't matter, like it's beta feature that one may not want to rely on. So the question is, and then after short discussion, we said that we definitely need to bring it to SIG architecture to clarify what we want to define as a deprecation and when we can deprecate. But also, we said that maybe we can mark something as deprecated, but say like deprecation timer is not started here. So it's a deprecated with a suggestion to migrate, but we don't start the timer of deprecation. So we will start actual timer when the feature replacement feature will be G8. So that's kind of like in the middle approach that notify people early that migration may be due, but at the same time doesn't force them to deprecate in a timeline that is maybe too aggressive with a thing. And I think somebody commented on that suggestion other features that was in the same situation. Some replacement was a beta and never graduated, or didn't graduate for a long time, for instance. One example is the read-only port that we going back and forth of marking is deprecated, even though like you don't have a clear replacement functionality. So some people think that it's already deprecated, some people don't think it's deprecated, but like it's kind of in the middle situation. So what I really wanted is maybe we can clarify deprecation position of Kubernetes. And I would strongly advocate of marking something as deprecated only when we have replaced it, replacement as a GA feature, or we saying that it's clearly not out of scope of Kubernetes and you need to switch to some other way to achieve the same thing.
So David has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if the feature that was being deprecated was GA or beta or alpha, because it seems entirely appropriate to me to deprecate, well, potentially just remove an alpha feature to deprecate a beta feature with a beta replacement, or to deprecate it potentially with no replacement if we don't intend to pursue it. And I see that as different than a GA feature. So where was this particular feature, its lifecycle?
It was like GA from very beginning of Kubernetes. It was long-standing feature.
Jordan.
I think clarifying whether it's deprecation where people have to migrate to something else, or deprecation with intent to remove with no replacement. If we're wanting people to migrate to something else, then I agree that the replacement should be at the same stability level before we start the clock, so that like the clock that we have is supposed to give people a certain number of releases to make a transition. And so we shouldn't force people to start a migration to a less stable thing in order to like stick within the timeframes. That said, we've also deprecated and removed things with no replacement. So like insecure port in API server is a good example, right? And so if the intent is to deprecate and remove with no replacement, then start announcing it as deprecated and starting the clock is okay. But saying, oh no, you should migrate to this new thing, but it's not as stable yet, I don't think we should start the clock until the new thing is as stable as the thing we're telling people to migrate away from.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's what I'm hearing. Both David and Jordan are saying that, and that I agree. That makes sense. That if it's you're replacing a beta feature, same level of stability makes sense. I think you could do a blog post. You could talk about, hey, we have this beta feature. The intent is to replace this, but I don't think an official deprecation, either flagged in release notes or starting the clock, because it will cause confusion. If you put it in the release notes, people will think the clock started and it will cause confusion. So I would just maybe do it with a blog post of like, here's the planned replacement. Once it goes GA, the deprecation clock will start on that.
A couple examples, KMS v1 never graduated out of beta. And so once KMS v2 was at the same level of stability, had reached beta level status, we did mark KMS v1 as deprecated in favor of KMS v2. That one we actually don't intend to remove per se, but we do want to go ahead and publicize and send the signal that you should start migrating to KMS v2. It is as stable as KMS v1, and KMS v1 isn't going to get attention. And so I don't know that it's specific to GA, but it's more about matching stability levels. Another example is marking something as deprecated, even when there's no replacement and we don't intend to remove it. So the v1 component status API is a good example of that, where we know it has problems, but it's a GA API. And so the people who it's working for, we don't really intend to break them, but we also don't intend to give attention to or fix some of the fundamental issues with it. So it's marked as deprecated so that anyone who tries to use it will get a warning, hopefully warning them away from adding new use of it. So there's a category for marking a GA thing as deprecated just to communicate this is pretty much frozen and it's not going to get better. You probably shouldn't start using it if you aren't already.
Do we need a special name for that, or it's still a deprecation?
I think deprecated is fine.
So Sergey, can I ask then that maybe if you haven't done so already, write up a PR capturing this, and then people can comment or approve. But it sounds like I don't hear any in the people present today, anybody arguing other than what you're suggesting as well.
So is it an agreement that we still can mark something as deprecated? So people will run with deprecated features. The only alternative for them will be use a beta feature. Is it still acceptable? Do we want to accept that as a outcome? Or like, I would advocate to not deprecate, like to not mark something as deprecated at all before there is a matching stability level feature.
What I heard is we don't mark it deprecated until there's a matching stability level feature, unless it's one of these special categories of, hey, this is a V1 API that we don't think is right, but we're not going to fix. So we discourage its use, and we use deprecated to do that, but we're not actually planning to remove it because it's not like it's causing a support burden or a scalability burden or some other burden. But
in this case, you want people to migrate to the new thing, but the new thing is not as stable yet. So I don't think we should mark it deprecated in favor of that new thing until the new thing is at the same stability level, which in this case is GA.
Exactly.
Oh, I misunderstood then. I thought that when you're saying that some functionality is frozen in time, meaning that we don't invest into that in favor of new replacement, still warrants a deprecation, but without clock started.
That may be, but that's like a separate category. It's not your direct question. So your direct question, we have agreement. When there's a replacement, then you should not start the deprecation of the existing feature until the replacement's at the same stability level. When there's no replacement, and you plan, when there's no replacement, actually, then you start the deprecation whenever you want, whenever you decide you're no longer going to invest in it. Some of those things will get removed, most of them, but Some may not because they don't really cause a problem, but
Or they're part of our GA API surface. So specifically GA APIs.
we booted component status out of conformance though, so.
But out of conformance, sure.
But it's still GA. Well, I think there is a policy in there for deprecating GA API service.
Yeah, but it
We've never-
relies on someone having the will to actually remove it, and I think that
I know. I'm just saying, policy-wise, it's possible. Nobody.
We revisited that a year or so ago and said, like, we shouldn't remove GA APIs while we're still in Kubernetes v1. Like, that's a major version change, and there's no v2 in the cards. So
yeah.
I believe that happened as a result of self-link. I remember that conversation. So, but like when I look at something like a read-only port, I could see deprecating that without replacement and deciding, you know what, we think this is something we don't want. We actually want to remove. We will deprecate without replacement and plan to remove in another year.
Yeah,
I could see us doing that versus something like this C advisor change that you're talking about. If the replacement, and they are planning a replacement, is not at an appropriate level, well, they would have to wait to start the removal clock.
Okay, I totally what I was expecting. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we don't have this new weird state when it's deprecated but clock hasn't started yet. So good. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So we'll see a PR from you on that, Sergey, and the deprecation policies. Awesome. Okay. Anything else then? Okay, excellent, everybody. Thank you. Have a great couple of weeks. And see you then. Bye-bye.